What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to cover the Eternals Heretic. This book is important for one particular reason, and that reasoning is because it gives us the origin of Uranos. Now, you would think, okay, this has to be a newer character. He's not. Matter of fact, this is a character that's been around since 1980. And what if number 24? Again, back in 1980. So with that book being his only appearance ever in Marvel Comics, Marvel felt like it would be a good idea to give him an updated origin story or to retell his origin in a newer book to help new readers understand who the character actually is. Now, as we go through this book, something else you have to remember. But at this point in Marvel Comics, Thanos is the prime eternal. He's the one in charge right now. And that is very huge. But now he is going to meet Uranos and learn the origin of Uranos, but get something very powerful from him as well. And speaking of the idea of Thanos being the prime eternal, of course, if you try to go against him, you're gonna get excluded. Now remember, when it comes to the excluded, it's technically a term used as a way to say you are locked away forever if you are an eternal that breaks a rule, that breaks a law. And so when it comes to Thanos, a whole lot more people are becoming excluded. They're being locked away because they're trying to stand against him, or they're trying to not stand with him at all and trying to ignore him. And Thanos doesn't like that at all. So of course you become excluded. And when it comes to the opening pages of this book, we're seeing Droog's father being locked away in the excluded cell. And when that happens, Droog does not care at all, which honestly makes sense because when it comes to Droog, the only person he cares about is himself. And so even when he sees his father being thrown into a cell, he's kind of like, well, that sucks. I'm only looking after myself. And after that, you did have Droog say that Thanos reminds him of Uranos. Matter of fact, you have Droog tell us the family tree when it comes to Uranos. And what I mean by that, for Droog, Uranos is his grandfather. And when it comes to Thanos, it'll be his grand uncle. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Thanos, he never met Uranos, and you would think that he has, but he hasn't. And so it's Thanos showing us that the only thing he heard about Uranos was just rumors. So for example, he believed that Uranos has been killed off, was brought back to life, then excluded. But then you have Droog say, no, he was never killed. He was just locked away. Now, this is where we are going to learn why was he locked away for? What did he do? But on top of that, why did they not kill him off for his mistakes? Now, let me tell you, as soon as Thanos meets Uranos, as soon as they meet, you have Uranos look at Thanos as disappointment. Like, oh, so you're Thanos. You're the one I heard that killed off half the universe. Pretty sad. It's kind of like, wait a second, you're going to tell Thanos that what he did many years ago is sad, but what you did is not even on his level. Now, technically, you could be more powerful than Thanos, but at the same time, your achievements are completely different. But for Uranos, who cares? Now, when it comes to Thanos, he's like, you know what? I want to kill you, but at the same time, I'm not going to kill you. And for Uranos, he believes that Thanos is scared to release him. But for Thanos, it's more of, no, because I know what you want. You want to be released, but at the same time, you can't be released. And so this is your torture. You've been here for so many years that you're trying your best to trick people to release you. But unfortunately, you'll never be released. Now, when it comes to Thanos and Droog, they were about to leave, except you didn't have Thanos as Uranos tell me your story. And the reason why, because he already knows if Thanos goes to Droog, Droog is going to give Thanos a different story about the origin of Uranos. So if you want to learn the actual origin, why not get it from the actual source? And so to begin the origin of Uranos, we have to jump back 600,000 years ago. And there is a very good reason why, because it's Uranos saying, I want you to understand what led me down the path I went on. And it all began when I had to go after a certain kind of deviant. Now remember, when it comes to deviants, they were also made by celestials as well, alongside with the Eternals. The problems with deviants that deviants are strange looking creatures, except they still act normal to a certain point, where they turn evil, turn into monsters, they turn crazy, and begin to attack their own or any other beings in their way. And that was a huge problem for the deviants. And so usually you'll have Eternals kill off those deviants who had gone bad. And so when it came to Uranos, at the very beginning of his origin story, he's showing us going after a deviant that went too far, that turned bad. Now, after doing that, the other deviants who were trying to get away from that one particular deviant, they were very happy to see Uranos, but he was not happy to see them, because he realized that when it comes to deviants, they could reproduce, but at the same time, they will always keep turning bad, no matter what, and be an endless cycle of the Eternals going after deviants over and over again. And so he felt like the best way to break that cycle is to go ahead and kill off all deviants across the board. But we have to skip back over to the present day for one good reason. And that reason is because Uranos says, I heard, Thanos, that you want to become part of the Great Machine. Now remember, the Great Machine is technically built into the Earth. It helps keep the Earth alive, but at the same time, it's also the way the Eternals are able to come back to life. And the problem is, Thanos is not completely connected to the Great Machine for so many different reasons. One, because when he was born, well, of course, he was a child of two Eternals, and it was banned for Eternals to have children to be added into the Great Machine. But at the same time, when it came to Thanos, he died, but he was brought back to life by another character known as Phastos. And when Phastos brought him back to life, well, he made his body in a unique kind of way. And so with that way, unfortunately, Thanos is unable to be completely connected to the Great Machine. When it comes to Uranos, he says, I'm telling you now, you do not want to be part of the Great Machine, because if you do, and you are the Prime Eternal, you're going to hold a whole lot more responsibilities. But then you have Uranos say, also, I want to tell you more of my story. It all began before we even had a Prime Eternal. We only had 3 of us in charge, me and my 2 brothers. And so when we jump back into the origin of Uranos, we see him having a meeting with his 2 brothers, Kronos and Oceanus. Now, these 2 brothers are going to be the reason why Uranos is locked up. And what I mean by that, when it came to Uranos, he came to his brothers and said, why not go ahead and kill off all deviants across the board? We can finally break that cycle. But then he'll go even farther and say, why not go ahead and kill off all beings that are not Eternals off the board to help us for sure to protect the Earth? When it comes to his brothers, they're like, no, you are talking about mass murder. We were not code by the Eternals to do that. So why would you do that? And then you have Uranos say, oh, by the way, I have powerful weapons that could make my job, my idea, go by so easy. Literally, it will be so easy to go to different cities in a matter of seconds. That entire town of deviants will be dead. But again, his 2 brothers do not agree at all. And so for Uranos, his idea is to show them what he had made and what he could do with his powerful weapon when he goes to each towns that belong to deviants. And we see him. He goes to the deviants' capital, and when he arrives, bam, just like that, he releases his weapon that was able to wipe out all deviants in this area. And then after doing that, he then told his people begin the process of getting rid of all deviants across the board. And that is very important because when it came to the three brothers, they each had their own kind of group of Eternals. And so it led to a war. Uranos and his people fighting against his two brothers and their people. And that led to him being locked up. Now, before he got locked up, there were a few more things that actually happened. And so to continue our coverage over the origin of Uranos, this is where we learn why wasn't he killed off for? Or why wasn't he killed off but then excluded? By the way, when it comes to Uranos, he is the first Eternal ever to be excluded. The first. And that was huge. But either way, why wasn't he not killed off? And we kind of find out the reason why, because he knows all the dark secrets of the great machine. And that is very important. And the reason why, because apparently if he dies, he told the great machine, when you bring me back to life with a new body, a new mind, make sure you mind wipe me so that the dark secrets could be lost forever. And that could ruin the Eternals down the road. And so he tells his two brothers, hey, I know all the secrets, but unfortunately, if you kill me off, they're lost forever. And so they're wondering what to do here, because again, they want to know what he learned about the great machine, but at the same time, they're afraid to let him go. But at the same time, they're wondering, hey, you know what? Maybe it's best to go ahead and kill him off. He also says he has a way to shut down the great machine. And that is huge, because if he does that, it's not just, oh, the Eternals lost their way to come back to life. No, the great machine is built inside the earth. It helps keep the earth alive. If the great machine dies, so does the earth. And so apparently, after his two brothers had learned that, they tried to go into his mind to pull out everything he knows about the great machine. But he was able to fight them in his mind to the point where they got exhausted. They gave up and went ahead and just locked him away, but hoping that one day, sooner or later, they'll learn everything that he knew about the great machine. But the ending of this book makes things even crazier, because then you have Uranos give Thanos the weapon, or the key to the weapon that will give Thanos the ability to kill off the earth just like that. Because again, if the great machine dies, so does the earth. Now, you have Thanos say, why in the world will you trust me with this item for? And you have Uranos say, because when I look at you, I finally see someone in my family tree that is not a disappointment. But as Thanos leaves, Thanos says at first, goodbye, great uncle. But then he says, no, not great uncle. I realize that you are my grandfather. And then he walks out. And that is the end for today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.